Hello and welcome to episode 161 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is October 24th, 2022. Today I'm wearing a loop that's knit out of this book Cowl Girl by Kathy Karen. You will probably recognize this hat plus loop that I'm wearing in the intro to my videos. But another pattern from this book that I've knit is this cowl or this loop, and this is what the original looks like. So it's quite close to mine. I used the same color, and I like the way that you can just loop it round the neck, or you could even pull it up over your head. And when I knit this, Opal had a new yarn out that was part silk. So the yarn I used for this cowl is part wool, part silk, and part polyamide. It's fairly long, and it has this nice thing, don't know what to call it, that hangs down that you can put inside your jacket to make sure that your chest stays nice and warm, or you can pull it through the way it was on the picture. So nice lace pattern and interesting construction. Yeah, and of course I'm wearing my new vest that I showed as a finished project last week. It's knit out of the Cashsilk by Lana Grossa. It's a mix of cashmere and silk, but only small parts, and I think the rest is cotton and again polyamide, I think. And I'm quite happy with the fit. It's a bit on the small side. It got fairly long because I only washed it on Saturday and it didn't want to dry. So yesterday morning? Maybe I put it on a hanger. It was still a bit damp. It wasn't totally wet, but it wasn't dry. So it grew lengthwise quite a bit, which is okay. And as I haven't stood on my chair for a long time, I'm going to stand on it so you can see the complete length, but also so you can see the skirt I'm wearing. I don't always show the skirts or trousers that I'm wearing, but as this is a knit skirt, I thought I'll show it. I wore it in the video before a long time ago, but I thought it fitted quite nicely with the black and grey color scheme. Yeah, so I might wear it in summer with some dresses or small blouses or something like that, but I might give it to my sister, or she might give it to her future daughter-in-law, her son's girlfriend. So we'll see who wants to keep it. So that's what I'm wearing today. I'll just put the cowl back on quickly. The way that was shown in the book is when you loop this through and they put is it a brooch or some jewelry on top of this, so that looked quite nice. So sometimes I wear it like this when I have a jacket that closes really high, and if I want the jacket to be a bit more open, I can leave it hanging, and then it just keeps my chest nice and warm. So much to what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have one finished object today. I have 3 new cast-ons. I know it's a bit crazy, and I am starting to feel that I have too many works in progress at the moment. So I will try to finish as many as possible, but I also have so many things that I want to cast on. It's really difficult. But let's start with the finished object for today. These are the pink 6-ply socks that I knitted for my sister, and I will see her again on Wednesday, so day after tomorrow, and I will give them to her. I haven't washed them yet, but she can wash them herself because she can just throw them into the washing machine, no problem there. They're nicely different, the way I like it. She doesn't mind. One one way or the other. It's a really simple pattern, a broken rib pattern. It's knit 2, purl 2, and then 2 rows of just knit stitch in between. So that's very easy to knit. It's still pulls in a little bit, and it's very easy to count the rows if you have just a bit of a pattern like that in the sock. Yeah, Opal 6-ply yarn, really happy. They knit up quickly, and I hope my sister will wear them a lot. So then I'll keep going with my socks, the ones that are in progress. My oldest pair of socks are the Rainforest socks out of 2 of this year's Rainforest colors mixed together in this beautiful pattern. And I continued knitting the foot of the sock, and I think there's only 2 more stripes left to do, and then I can start the toe. So these should be finished fairly soon, and then I will show again how the colors are different in both of the socks the way I like it. Yeah, so that's sock number 1. Then sock number 2, I am knitting the sock couple for this year. So every year I knit a pair of socks for her and a pair for him, and then I'll give them away as a Christmas present. And I am knitting the Treppenviertel socks by Nicolor, and they have this nice pattern where you have the rib running down one side of the leg, and then the other side of the leg has these are these the vertical stripes? No, these are the horizontal and these are the vertical. So it's the difference between those two. And then on top of the foot, you just keep going with those stripes. And I think last week I didn't show them, but I continued knitting on the second sock. And this is what the sock looked like just before you start the heel. And it's quite interesting to see that this kind of rib pulls in like this. So it's the same amount of rows all round, but this pulls in like this, whereas this pattern pulls in like this. So this bit seems to be wider than this bit, but shorter. And I think it looks really funny. And when I start the heel, so the heel will be either on this half or that half. It'll be different from the other sock, but I thought it's quite fun to show the sock at this point in the construction. Yeah, and I'm going to switch to different needles because I don't like knitting the heel on the tiny circulars. And then when I finish the heel, I will probably use the Crazy Trio needles by Adi to knit the rest of the sock, because I switched to the circular needle instead of the double pointed needle because of the bit where I have purl stitches where I switched needles with a double pointed, and I didn't want to have that because you can sort of see where I switched needles here. So that's why I used the circular needle, but I need them for another pair of socks that I have to cast on. So I will definitely have at least one new cast on next week because I need to cast on another pair of socks. So I'm going to put other needles into this sock, and the next week I'll show you the socks that I have to start. So these are the socks that you already know. Oh, there's another pair that you already know. I started a pair of knee-high socks with the new book that I showed you last week, Knitting with Color and Imagination. Don't know what the English version is called, but last week I started the toe and I started knitting some color pattern, and I continued knitting, and this was long enough for my foot to put the heel in, so I put a solid color heel in, and I have already started the next pattern. So so far I've only just put in just sort of graphic patterns. In the book these looked a little bit like flowers with a leaf, but here they don't really look like that. And this pattern looked a little bit like a flower, so I knit half the pattern. I think I knit one more row, then half of it, so this will just be mirrored on top. And I'm using the third ball of leftover yarn, even though it's not really obvious. So the first one was this one, and then the second one was this bit, even though the same pink and blue are in this yarn as well. So it's a bit crazy to be switching leftover balls of yarn, but I felt like doing that, so that's what I'm doing. And I'll knit a bit more with this yarn, and then I will probably use some leftover glitter yarn that I have that I want to put into this sock as well. Yeah, so this is my knee-high sock out of my new book with leftover Opal yarn. And one of my new cast-ons is another sock. And the reason I had to cast this on is I got another book. So I'm showing you lots and lots of books, but somehow I just keep getting books. So when I wrote to the Stiebner Verlag, to the publisher, for the book with the gloves, I also said that I'd be interested in this book, which is called Iceland Socken. I think the English title is Socks from Iceland, and it wasn't published back when I wrote my email, but I said I'd be interested, and they said they would send it to me as soon as it was published, and it arrived last week. So it's really freshly published, a really new book. The German version, at least. The English version, I think, has been out for some time. I don't know. So this is another book that I got from the publisher for free, and it's a very beautiful book with lots of different and interesting socks, beautiful photography, and also lots of text about Iceland, about the history of knitting in Iceland, lots of pictures of this is an old knitting book, but it also has pictures of old socks and old other patterns, and lots of information. So it's really interesting to just read through the book and learn about how knitting, or what importance knitting had in Iceland for a long time, when the whole family was knitting socks and trying to make an income by selling their socks. And then they had certain rules, what the size had to be. And what I found interesting, I think this is the oldest pair of socks that they found in Iceland. And they often did the knee-high socks. And back then, you didn't have superwash yarn. So, of course, they probably didn't have washing machines, so it didn't matter. But what they did is they knitted the socks a bit bigger than they needed them, and then they slightly felted them. So they washed them and made sure they felt a little bit, and then they put them on huge sock blockers to let them dry in a certain size. So that would guarantee that the sock had exactly the size that was asked for. And because of the felting, the socks would be warmer and I think more durable as well. So that's really interesting. So there's lots and lots of information in this book, but also lots of beautiful socks. Some of them with several colors, sometimes just one color. These are beautiful knee-high lace socks. But there's also some simpler socks with less pattern and easier to knit. This is another beautiful pair that I love. These are fantastic. I have ideas for this pair. This is another beautiful cable pattern. So lots and lots of different socks. Sometimes she used the pattern that she used for mittens or hats or pullovers in the past, and then she put the same pattern into socks, which is a good idea. But some of the socks are also fairly simple. So this is a rather simple pair of socks, still beautiful. But one of the things that surprised me in reading this book is that the yarn that she uses is her own yarn. If I look at the weight and the yardage, it seems to be a lot thicker than our usual sock yarn, but she still uses a 2.5 millimeter needle all the time. And I think one pair she uses a different yarn, which is even thicker, and she still uses a 2.5 millimeter needle, and she still has a 26 stitches gauge, so it's always the same, which confused and surprised me a bit. So at first I thought I'll knit a gauge swatch, which I usually don't do for socks, and because you have to knit it in the round, I was a bit hesitant. But then I came across these socks, and these are called Quadrat. And these are socks, very simple socks with the rib pattern. And she says, because of the rib pattern, they are so flexible, they will fit everybody, from baby to grandpa. She says the only thing you have to change is the length that you knit, because the bigger the foot that you put inside, the more you stretch it sideways, the shorter it will get. So you have to make sure to knit the right length for the person you are knitting for. But otherwise, you can knit the sock with 48 stitches for everybody. So that sounded interesting. I decided to start these socks, of course, with colorful Opal yarn, and then see who it fits and what length to knit. And also I can use that as my gauge swatch now. The yarn, this is a project I'm not using leftover yarn. I started a brand new ball of yarn, and I'm using the Lifestyle Opal in this blue-grey color. So this is a neutral color that anybody can wear, because I didn't know yet who to knit them for. And I cast on 48 stitches with my 2.5mm needle, and this is what I got. So this really looks quite small, so I could imagine putting these on a baby and they wouldn't stretch at all, and they wouldn't fall off straight away. So it could fit, but it can also fit a bigger size. And they fit my hand, they also fit my feet, so I can knit them for myself. But I wanted to show them what they look like on different sizes. So I'm using these sock blockers that I got from Daniela's Wolltopf. And this is a German size 32, 33, which in Germany is children's size. In Japan would be the smallest common women's size. But this is what it looks like on this size sock blocker. So it's just stretched a little bit. It's fairly long, but it fits. Then the next blocker is the size 36, 37. I wear a 37.5, so I have to make sure they are a bit bigger than this sock blocker, but as you can see, they fit me. There's still a bit of room, and they're not quite as long as they were on the little blocker, but still quite a bit. And then the biggest sock blocker I own is size 42, 43, which is like a men's size or a big women's size. And I have this little gnome on it, which is a special edition. She did that just for me, which I thought was really nice. And if I put the sock on this blocker, it actually fits. It's quite a bit tighter, but it still fits on it. And I think that this part is even bigger than the leg part. So I try to put it on here, and that fits as well. So it does get shorter because of the sideways stretch, but it fits. I'm not sure whether it would be comfortable in this size. And she says for a men's size, it'd be okay to go up a needle size, which is probably what I would do. I will probably use more stitches as well. But still, I thought it was an interesting theory to knit socks with the same number of stitches for everybody in the family. I've decided to knit these for myself now. They are quite a bit thicker and tighter than I usually knit socks, but I used to knit socks fairly loosely, and I've started to knit them more tightly recently. So these are the tightest pair of socks I've knit so far, but I think they will probably last forever, which is a good thing. So I'll finish these, I'll wear them, and I'll let you know how they work out. So that's the new cast on for socks. This is the new book I have. Now on with my other projects. Let me just grab my notes. That's it about socks. Then on to other sock yarn projects, small sock yarn projects. I continue knitting on my second mitten out of the beautiful book, the other beautiful book that I have. So last time I knit one pattern repeat. I've now finished the second pattern repeat. I've put in some contrast yarn for the thumb, and now I just need to finish the next 2 pattern repeats and then put the thumb in. So still a bit of work. I still love the difference that the mittens have from changing the main color and the contrast color. I still think both look really nice, and I think it'll be really fun to have a mismatched pair like this. Another Opal yarn with alpaca sock yarn as the main color. Now the main color. So that's that. Then before I show you the hat, I show you the second new cast on, and that's the next gnome. We are in the year of gnomes, and I am trying to knit a gnome every month so I can take part in Sarah Shearer's Year of Gnomes. And I haven't done my October gnome yet, so I started knitting another Here We Gnome Again gnome. This is the 5th time I've knit this pattern, but I still love it. I'm using leftover sock yarn by Opal. The September gnome, the September gnome, the first time I knit the last mystery gnome, I used some of this green, and I'm going to use a lot for this gnome. And I brought the big brother of this gnome. So this is one of my older gnomes. It's the same pattern, but this is knit out of 8-ply sock yarn, and this is the 4-ply sock yarn knit on a really small needle. I usually knit my sock yarn, 4-ply sock yarn gnomes on a 2.5mm needle, and this time I used a 2.0mm needle. So this is going to be a tiny little brother to this gnome. And I already love it. So I have to finish this month. So I have my proper October gnome, and yeah, I really enjoy knitting all these gnomes. That's that. Then on to the hats I'm knitting. I'm knitting 2 hats. One of them is the Poka Poka hat out of the book Moon and Turtle. Turtle and Moon. I think it's Moon and Turtle. And I used the hand-dyed sock yarn by Wolldackel for the first half of the hat, and now I'm knitting the same hat again out of this silk mohair yarn by Hansa Farm. This is just very simple, boring stockinette stitch knitting, but I'm really looking forward to having this hat. So yeah, it's not too much more to do, so it's, where do the decreases start? So maybe this much more to knit, and then I can do the decreases, and then I will have a wonderfully bright and warm and soft hat. The other hat I'm knitting, that was a new cast on last week, wasn't it? Yeah, it's the Halloween hat. It's a pattern by Stephanie Lotvin from Telly Bean Knits, and I'm using, again, 2 leftover yarns, a black and a colour out of the Jazz series by Opal, and I continued knitting on these skeletons. So the little ghosts were finished. I think last time I'd finished the legs, and now I finished the hip and the chest area. So these are the ribs, and now you can see these are the shoulders, and you can see that the arms go down here and the skeletons are holding hands. So there is a version of this hat where you knit hearts instead of the little ghosts. I think it's so funny. I love knitting this. Now the only part of the pattern that's missing are the skeleton heads, the skulls, and then in between the heads there will be some more little ghosts, and then the decreases, and then the hat will be done. Yeah, lots of fun. The hat will probably be a little bit too small for me, I think. So I can't give it to my son. That was one idea that I had, but I'm sure I'll find someone who will like and wear this funny Halloween hat. So that's that. The next project that I used to show was the square that I knit for my sister's blanket, but I will not be knitting that anymore because my sister's son's girlfriend is back in Germany, and she said she would love to knit on that because she doesn't have a lot of projects at the moment, and she'd love to help her and to continue knitting on that square. So I'll give that to her, and she will finish the square. My friend will finish the other square, and then once they are done, I will have the joy of sewing them together. And I think that's when I will show the whole blanket in the video again, just to let you know what kind of blanket we made and the little bit that I knit. Yeah, but the other sock yarn project that I still have on the go is the gnome pullover. And I finally finished knitting the gnomes. I am so happy. So I finished the color work. You can see this is the gnome with a straight hat, and this is the gnome with the hat hanging down. And yeah, sometimes people ask me what the colorful dots in between are, but they are just to make the knitting easier so you don't have such long floats. If you want to see the floats, this is what the inside of my pullover looks like. I think I did sometimes catch the float, but not too often because it's just a pullover. It's easy to put on and take off. Yeah, but lots and lots of gnomes. I've knit the round on top of the gnomes, and I started doing the decrease round, I think, but I ran out of yarn. So I do still have more yarn. It's just that this ball of yarn was finished, and I thought I'll just show it like this without yarn, without having a ball hanging off of it. So yeah, right now it doesn't really have a back and front because I haven't done the short row shaping yet. I think I'll have to knit a few more rounds with all the stitches, and then I'll do the short row shaping to raise the back, and then fairly soon I hope this will be finished. So that's the pullover I'm knitting at the moment, and then we come to the shawls, and I've knit on both the shawls that you already know, and I've started a new one. Crazy, I know. Yeah, but there's a reason. But first, the two shawls that you know, they're both by Romy Hill. This is the High Sierra shawl in 2 colors, and all I did on this was knit the remaining stripes. So I'm now set to start the lace pattern with the red color again, and this will be the last section, lace section, and then there'll be more stripes to finish off the shawl. Yeah, really enjoy the knitting. I'm looking forward to finding out what the next lace pattern is going to be, because all the lace patterns are a little bit different from each other, so that keeps it interesting. And yeah, looking forward to knitting that. And then the other Romy shawl I'm knitting is the Chevrioni, and this is one of my long time whips that I sort of got out of the cupboard. I started this years ago. This is a project on my other Ravelry page. I have one Ravelry page that I started when I started the shop, and this is sort of my private Ravelry page that I hardly ever use anymore, but this is still on there as a work in progress. So at some point I want to finish it, and I added another pattern repeat, so I put in another row of beads. I love the way you can do it. There's a garter ridge in between the beads, so you can either always do the garter ridges, or you can do the beads every other garter ridge. This is a gradient yarn ball. And I've only had one color change so far, and I'm looking forward to the next one, and also looking forward to wearing this shawl. Yeah, and the next shawl that I cast on, oh, by the way, Chevrioni, so lots of chevrons and yeah, a little bit of a lace pattern. The next shawl that I cast on because it's part of the pattern battle over in the Opal subscription, Opal Abo group. So the Opal Abo, the subscription, means that when you order that, you get 4 parcels a year, and in every parcel you have 6 colors, 6 balls of Opal sock yarn, but you don't know which colors you will get. So that's always a big surprise, which is why I do unboxing videos on my German channel. But there's one person in the Opal Abo group who picks 3 of the 6 colors from every parcel, and then we get to vote. This time this color was chosen, and then everybody taking part in the pattern battle has to choose a different pattern from all the others. So the earlier you choose your pattern, the more you have to choose from, but I'm usually late to the party. But most people knit socks, and I try not to knit socks as often as possible. Last time I did socks, but this time I decided to do a shawl, and I decided to knit one of Martina Beem's shawls from her Hitchhiker collection. So I've knit the Hitchhiker shawl once, but I don't think I've knit any of the other patterns in the book. And then I looked through the book and tried to find a pattern that I could knit with just 100 grams of yarn, because you only get 1 ball per color in your subscription box. I know several people have the subscription as well, so sometimes I can swap and I can have 2, but this time I didn't really want to have a big shawl out of that color, and I found this shawl, which is called Baltic Summer. Looks rather busy, but you can see it has the same sort of chevrons, and it has the same sort of asymmetrical shape. So it's really quite similar to the Chevrioni. And I didn't realize it at all, because I hadn't knit on the Chevrioni for quite some time. And because this isn't really an open work lace and it doesn't have beads, and somehow I just absolutely did not realize how similar the two were until I knit on this and then knit on the Chevrioni, and I realized they are very much alike. But they're not the same, so I'm knitting 2 similar but not the same shawls, and the colors of course are very different. So with this design there's no lace pattern, so there are no holes. The increases are done in a different way. They're not done with yarn overs, and also this edge is quite different to the Chevrioni. This edge is fairly similar even though it's knit in a different way. Yeah, but I thought with the stripes that you can see in the yarn, I thought it'd be nice to do these chevrons, because then with the stripes in the yarn, you can see them very clearly. And I did like this asymmetrical shape, and I think this is going to be a nice little shawlette once it's done. And because the pattern battle happens now, I didn't want to wait too long with casting this on. So now I have 3 shawls on the go. We'll see which one I finish first. Yeah, what else? I continued crocheting on the Talavera blanket out of the Simply Crochet magazine, and I completely finished those dark pink buds or whatever they are. I finished crocheting the white round on top, so that sort of finishes off these buds, and I even started crocheting the next round, but then I ran out of yarn. I have more yarn here. I didn't have it at home, which is why I had to stop crocheting. So there's one more white round that comes now before they start with the blue pattern. And so when I finish this round, I will have a close look at the remaining parts of the pattern, and then I will decide which of the blue rounds I'm going to crochet and when to start the finishing edge. Yeah, so this is a fairly big, fairly heavy blanket already. Haven't weighed it yet. I'll do that when it's done, so I know how much yarn is in this blanket. And then the last project, as usual, is the knit along that we're doing, and this is for the Viva Vittoria organization or happening that's going to happen in Darmstadt. And just in case you're in Germany or you want to participate from outside Germany, I've now put the address where to send the squares on the in the discussion thread in my Ravelry group. So there's a Ravelry group for Kikos Strickschule. I'm not quite sure whether I've linked that underneath the video, but I'll try and remember and link it underneath the video, maybe underneath this project, so you know where to find it. And there you can find the information where to send the squares. There's also an address where you can go and help with sewing the squares together, because they need help in sewing the many squares that people have sent already and the ones that people are still going to send, to sew them together into blankets of 4 squares. And when to find out where to send the squares, I called the organizer and I chatted with her for quite a while, and I found out why she wants people to put a signature onto their squares. So you don't have to put your name if you don't want to, but they ask everybody who participates to put something on the square to sort of set it off from other people's. It could just be you put the same sort of button on all the squares that you knit, or you embroider something, or you crochet a little something that you sew on, but just make it something personal. And the reason they ask you to do that is because they want 4 squares from 4 different people to come together in one blanket. And the reason they want that to happen is they say that every blanket, every finished blanket, is 7 people's voice against I keep forgetting the word. I wrote it down somewhere. Violence against women. That's it. And the 7 people who stand up against violence against women are the 4 people who knit or crochet the 4 squares. The 5th person will sort the squares and decide which 4 go together. The 6th person is going to sew the 4 pieces together, and the 7th person is going to put another label onto the finished blanket. So 7 people have worked on each blanket that they're going to show and then sell in Darmstadt, and that's why they want all 4 squares in the blanket to be from different people. And to know they're from different people, they need some sort of sign, some sort of signature on your square. I thought that was very interesting to know, which is why I wanted to let you know. And I'm going to buy sort of labels with my name on them. But as I said, you don't have to put your name. You can just put buttons or crochet something, embroider a little X or whatever, as long as it's your unique signature that you put on every of your squares. That's perfectly okay. Yeah, so I continued knitting my square. Last time I think I'd just finished this color, so I added this color. I'm not really sure this is going to be enough yarn to make it 50 centimeters, but I will just knit for as long as I can. Still really unhappy with my beginning of the square, but I will just, once I've cast it off, I will wash and block it, and either it blocks out or I will cut it out and re-knit the center. We'll see about that. If I cut it out, maybe I'll make a video of it. Maybe. Not promising anything. Okay, so that's a really long video today, but I had a lot to tell you. I actually knit on all the projects, all the current projects. I still have a few works in progress that I'm not showing at the moment, but I think all the current things I've worked on. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!